Thank you. I will give you just what you were waiting for, another talk. But let me take you into the future. We are now meeting at SDG plus 40. Yeah? The International Resource Panel has just launched its report on Global Resource Outlook 2055. And I have to congratulate you. Against all odds, you have delivered Olga's world. So I have to congratulate you on your leadership, on your vision, on the bold decisions you were willing to make. And I think Olga, who is now in her early 50s, would recognize that all the science and all the knowledge that she was pleading us to use, that you've put it to good use. Yeah? I also have to say that as a scientist involved in the International Resource Panel, this was a bit against all odds, because in 2024, remember those days, we actually launched our Global Resource Outlook 2024 with some sobering results. We were living in a world where we were overusing natural resources in a way that was the driving force behind the triple planetary crisis. On top of that, wealthy nations were actually using many more resources and causing 10 times more damage to environment, to health, and to climate. We were also living in a world where global governance was not really addressing the issue of materials and resources in an effective way. And we were not the only ones doubting the future. Scientists in other panels, the IPCC, the IPBES, the World Health Organization, those working on UNEP's Global Environment Outlook, had the same doubts, and not without reason. Not without reason. We were calling for bold action. We were calling for systemic change at a pace and at a scale that we had never seen before. Yeah? And to be quite frank, we were observing what had been happening since Rio 1992, where we actually had SDGs already. It was called Agenda 21, where everybody was enthusiastic for years about those, but not a lot happened. Yeah? So we were thinking, how is this going to happen? After a set of conferences, we were always present. And remember those days in the 20s when we were happy that we could remove a bracket or we could change the word from shall to should, and we thought that was a victory? Remember, I even remember a COP in Dubai on climate. And it was a big victory, 30 years into climate negotiations, that we added the word fossil fuels to the final text. Remember those days? I mean, those were weird days, yeah? But we got over that, yeah? We got over that. We got over the decades of what I call the rocking horse decades. A lot of movement, but little progress. And you moved us into the decades of action, and that's exactly what we needed. So you have realized this massive sustainability transition. I would call it a sustainability revolution. You did it in the energy system. We use the model that the International Resource Panel had in its 2024 report, we actually now have a strong, resilient, renewable energy system, and we cut by 2060 greenhouse gas emissions by more than 80%. We have a mobility system that is a sustainable mobility system that has not just replaced engines in vehicles, but that has delivered clean, fast, easily accessible, affordable, and climate neutral, biodiversity neutral, but also material resource efficient mobility systems. You were the investors in that. You were the visionaries. We've also changed the food system. Pun intended, probably the hardest nut to crack. Yeah? Think of the 20s, when people were protesting. Changing anything in the food system led to protest. We had to deal with the strongest lobby, arguably, in the whole system. But we did it. You did it because of visionary leadership, and you understood that we needed something else. The IRP, of course, in its 2055 report, is also very happy to see that we went through the materials transition. We are now using 30% less materials than we would have used if we would not have taken the bold action. And what is much more importantly, we decoupled in absolute terms in the global north. The rich countries are using far fewer resources, and the good news is that especially those countries at the bottom of the income level, the low-income countries, which had been locked into a low resource use, low development logic, are now using far more resources and they are delivering far better human development outcomes. This is possible because you made the right choices. Yeah? What is most amazing, since we are in Nairobi, is that the African continent, which was the continent in every single report that was locked into a certain development lagging behind, that has been transformed. It has unlocked the immense human potential, the youngest continent with people who want another future. They are now benefiting in 2055 from being a resource-rich continent. The value chain of resources is no longer to get them out of the African continent as fast as possible and to add the big value in other places. We are now in a continent that is using the resources also for its own development. That is arguably the biggest achievement by 2055. So I think there is a lot to celebrate. That is the good news. Now I have to say that what I admire most about what you have been doing is that you overcame a lot of adversity. I mean, first of all, within your own business community. Think back to the 20s when your business organizations, your industrial organizations were going at the speed of their lowest 25% membership, where you as leaders with a vision for the future were held back because they were lobbying for the system of old. Their business model was in it, their profit was in it, their assets were in it, and they didn't really believe that they could change the model. You overcame that. You also overcame your political opposition. Countries in the 20s, remember, they were pushing back on this type of agenda in some cases. Sure, they were signing the global agreements, but when push comes to shove, they were pushing back. The Green Deal, pushed back by some countries. Global real shifts, pushed back. Financial system, pushed back. You overcame that. That's a quite amazing feature of your history towards sustainability. So I think there is a lot to celebrate today, and the outcome is amazing. Yeah? We've done what science was telling us we could be doing. We've done what you in the business community told us we could be doing. We did what we had to do. And that was based on vision, that was based on leadership, but also on creating the conditions for others to follow your leadership. And that's where governance comes in. Yeah? The right tax system, the right investment pushes, getting rid of environmentally harmful subsidies. We were in 24 when we wrote the report. We had been writing about environmentally harmful subsidies for decades, but we hadn't done much. By now, we shifted the money in our economy towards sustainable investments and sustainability subsidies in a massive way. We also understood that a $100 trillion economy is not going to shift by creating little funds of a couple billion here and a couple billion there. It was all about shifting that $100 trillion economy fundamentally in a sustainable way. So those were the big governance things we did, really important achievements over that time. So thanks for that. Those of you who worked on technology, those of you who worked on the connection with nature, which we cannot ignore. But I would like to end probably by looking in the mirror and by saying what changed the whole game and why we can celebrate in 2055 Olga's world, another world that is a dystopia, is that when you looked in the mirror in the 1920s, after that meeting in Nairobi, yeah, you knew it was all about ethics. You knew it was all about ethics. Thank you.